The United States Senate has been debating Democratic legislation to establish federal protections for voting rights and to block the subversion of election results. With Republicans unanimously opposed to that legislation, the question at hand is whether Democrats, as they say, would go nuclear and allow themselves to pass these voting rights protections with a simple majority vote. And I'll tell you, I was just looking back today at when Republicans were in the majority in the Senate and President Trump was in office. During that time, right, Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell is running the Senate, Trump is in the White House. During that time, Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans went nuclear and decided it would be a majority vote only, it would be 50 votes only, to confirm Supreme Court nominees. Then Mitch McConnell went nuclear another time and decided it would be a majority vote only, it would be 50 votes only needed for lower level executive branch nominees. Then he went nuclear a third time and decided he would change the filibuster rule and it would only have to be a majority vote, a 50 vote threshold for federal district court judges. Even since President Biden has been president, the United States Senate has decided to go nuclear, as they say, to require just a majority vote, just 50 votes on a bill to fund the government last year. They also did it. They went nuclear. They decided it would be just a majority vote, just 50 votes for a random vote that didn't go anywhere about vaccine requirements. I mean, we use the phrase go nuclear because it's supposed to be the end of the world, right? It's supposed to be mutually assured destruction. Turns out they go nuclear all the time. They go nuclear and decide that a 50 vote majority is enough, that we can't have a 60 vote threshold for a particular type of action in the Senate or a particular type of legislation or a particular amendment, a particular vote. They do that all the time now. Even in this Senate, even when the Republicans were in control with Trump in the White House. It happens all the time. But Democratic Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema keep saying that this would be an unprecedented thing to do, even though that's absolutely not true. They just keep saying they won't do it for voting rights. Tonight in the Senate, they're not even voting to go nuclear like they have on so many other issues in the recent past. Tonight, they're voting on the narrowest possible way to do this. A rule just to require a talking filibuster, a physical effort to actually be there and speak and hold the floor for a long time if you want to filibuster voting rights specifically. And presumably Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema will vote against making that change too. But just in case, Vice President Kamala Harris is presiding over the Senate right now, and she is available to cast that 51st vote to pass voting rights legislation if it comes to that. All day long, senators have gone back and forth today about voting rights and whether to change Senate rules so that there can be a 50 vote margin to protect them. Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas at one point tried to say that Democrats were hypocrites because he read a letter from 2017 in which several Democratic senators said they supported keeping the filibuster as it is. One of the senators who signed that letter is New Hampshire Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan, who has talked here on the show a couple of times, including last night, about how her position on the filibuster has evolved and why. After Senator Cotton invoked her and the other Democratic senators who signed that letter, Senator Hassan actually got up for an impromptu response. This was really interesting to watch.
I know I was not scheduled to speak, but I do want to respond as one of the signatories of the letter. I associate myself with everything that the other signatories have talked about in terms of wanting to restore the Senate's tradition of extended debate on issues of grave importance to the American people. But let me be clear about the reason that I now support an adjustment to the long-standing rules of the Senate. And it is because I never imagined when I signed that letter that not a single member of the Republican Party would stand up for our democracy since January 6th, when we saw an acceleration of state laws that would allow partisans to overturn the impartial count of an election. But if we do not have a functioning democracy where people know that when they vote, that vote will be impartially counted and upheld, and the people who are defeated will accept defeat so that they can have an accountable elected representation in Washington, then there is no democracy. And when I signed that letter, I never imagined that today's Republican Party would fail to stand up for democracy.
New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan with impassioned remarks today in the United States Senate. I never imagined that today's Republican Party would fail to stand up for democracy. When President Biden was giving his press conference this afternoon, as I mentioned earlier, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin chose that moment to get up on the Senate floor to defend his decision to block voting rights with Republicans. And interestingly, he gave that speech in front of a big sign that he and his staff made that said, "The United States Senate has never been able to end debate with a simple majority," implying that what Democrats are trying to do in terms of having a majority vote on voting rights is stating there that is completely unheard of. This kind of thing has never been done before. That is deeply, deeply wrong. Deeply ahistorical and wrong. It's just not true. But don't take it from me. Here was Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota speaking in part in response.
There are 160 exceptions. 160 exceptions to the filibuster rule. Things have been changed to benefit my colleagues from the other side of the aisle. Somehow, it only takes 51 votes to put in place the Trump tax cuts or the Bush tax cuts. Somehow, it only took 51 votes to put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court of the United States, a change by them, made by them. Somehow, it only takes 51 votes to try to overturn a regulation or try to mess around with the Affordable Care Act. But then, when it comes to something like voting rights, suddenly everyone on the other side of the aisle is hugging that filibuster tight, knowing that so many times in history, including most recently with the debt ceiling, changes have been made to allow a vote with less than 60 votes. The National Gas Policy Act in 1977, in 1995, the Endangered Species Act, in 1996, a change to the reconciliation process. 160 times. I think by voting this down, by not allowing us to even debate this to get to the conclusion of a vote, that is silencing the people of America, all in the name of an archaic Senate rule that isn't even in the Constitution. That's just wrong. I yield the floor.
All in the name of an archaic Senate rule that isn't even in the Constitution. Joining us now live is the senior senator from the great state of Minnesota, Senator Amy Klobuchar. Senator, I know you are in the thick of it. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks for taking a moment to give us your perspective. Tell us about what has happened today and into tonight.
First of all, I love that you played that clip of Maggie Hassan. I love Maggie Hassan. I just want to say that. She stood up strong and made the case like no one ever could. Secondly, what's happened tonight is we had a first vote that just occurred to get on the bill. And both Senator Manchin and Senator Sinema, who are co-sponsors of the bill that we worked with them on all summer, the Freedom to Vote Act, that I've been leading, and they did vote for that because they do support the bill. I think that's important for people to know. But now it's going to be the second vote, and that is where the argument really pivots. Because to me, if you're serious about voting rights, and you so well pointed out, Rachel, how many times there's been exceptions, and I note 160 times we've changed the process. I could even add to that compensation for victims of space accidents that we changed the numbers for. You can go through history and it's replete with examples. But why? Because senators wanted to get things done, because they came to Washington to do things, and when they saw an obstacle in their path, still allowing the filibuster to stay in place, they made practical changes to get things done, sometimes on small things, but sometimes on really, really big things, like Supreme Court justices, which Mitch McConnell did, like the Bush and Trump tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, the recent ones for the wealthy, all on 51 vote margins.
Senator Klobuchar, you have been telling this history in various ways throughout the debate, and particularly as the debate has become more and more heated and more focused on this point. I find myself frustrated by the assertions from Senator Manchin and from Senator Sinema that it would be unprecedented, that it's never been done before, that there's nothing in history that suggests that you could have a 50 vote threshold for voting on a bill like this. Like, it would be something that you'd need to be able to move mountains. I wonder if you had any perspective on that. I mean, clearly you know the history. Clearly, Senator Manchin today didn't just say it, he put up a board on the floor of the Senate giving an ahistorical, untrue statement about these things. I wonder how you and your colleagues are handling that.
We keep making the case. I think we're pretty sure how this is going to end tonight. But what's been important for me is that we have every other senator on board. And, you know, your viewers should know we have an election coming up, and neither of those two are up, but there are strong possibilities for taking over Senate seats across the country. If we get to 52, that's a whole different ballgame when it comes to the Senate rules and getting this done. Your viewers should know that we have a Justice Department filled with people like Vanita Gupta and Kristen Clark, who are committed to enforcing the Voting Rights Act and the bills that are right now on the books. We are going to be mobilizing in state legislatures across the country. We're going to be working to fund elections, something that we can do with mail-in ballots and the like. So there is so much work that we can do, including fixing the Electoral College. But none of it, I want to make clear, Rachel, why I worked so hard on this year, none of it will be a replacement for the Freedom to Vote Act, because that would have finally put the standards into law, because everyone knows what's happening here. You know, get rid of same-day registration in Montana. That counts like 8,000 people used that in the last election, been in place 15 years. Get rid of registration during the last month, the runoff period in Georgia. 70,000 people registered that time. Those things were put into law with what one court described as another voting rights suppression law as surgical precision. We're going to continue to see that, and I will not give up this fight.